Well, good afternoon and welcome to Seattle's Eastside Real Estate Podcast, the best podcast you will watch or listen to today. It's going to be phenomenal. We've got some great guests. Now, this podcast is dedicated to living, working, playing on the East Side, the greater East Side of Seattle. And it is Wednesday, December 15th, and we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Feel free to comment, subscribe, like, and share this podcast right now with anybody you think would find value about learning about what's going on, not only in the housing market on the East Side, but in the community. We'd love to hear your comments. If you're subscribing to our podcast, or if you want to, you can subscribe anywhere that podcasts are podcasted. So Google Podcasts and more. We would love to have you subscribe, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. And please do take a moment to rate our podcast. We appreciate that. Why is it going to be an amazing show? Well, it is the last show of 2021. That's right. Next year is 2 weeks away. I know, it's unbelievable. So not only that, but we have the best guests we have had all year. It's going to be amazing. Sean Stewart of Directors Mortgage for our mortgage moment. And of course, our amazing Mr. Doug Peterson of Get Priorities Straight, not to be shortchanged by amazing and talented Alicia Howard of College Insights. So it's going to be a great conversation, of course. But before we get to our guests, we're going to start out with some real talk and address a question. And it's advice for that first generation home buyers that are out there. I thought I'd do that a little different today. I thought what I would do is I would share with you our website, our blog, and where you can find this information. So let me just kind of share my screen here. Here we go. So this is our website, the eastsiderealestateteam.com. And if you go over to the blog section, you're going to find lots of great, interesting articles. And today we're just going to grab the article Advice for First Generation Home Buyers and just kind of go over it. You know, obviously it's an amazing sense of pride for anybody thinking of buying a home, but those first generation home buyers, there is a additional level of pride, and we really love to come alongside and help first generation home buyers. And as you know, they call it the American dream, right? The dream of owning a home, and they have a sense of pride and accomplishment that resonates with the buyers and those closest to them, their relatives. In other words, those relatives might have made sacrifices that helped them achieve that level of the American dream. So if you are in that category of first generation, first time home buyers, what do? Well, number one, you got to reach out to a real estate professional. Here's what we found is, according to a profile of home buyers and sellers at the National Association of Realtors, is that first-time home buyers, this is the percentage of what those individuals are looking for. So 85% are looking for buyers to understand the process. So those buyers are looking to a real estate agent to understand the process. Also, pointing out unnoticed features and faults with the property. Now, that doesn't just resonate with first-time home buyers or first-generation home buyers. That resonates with every home buyer, right? That ability to point out the unnoticed things, an expert eye. I've seen literally thousands of homes, and it doesn't take me long to spy some things that kind of are a little out of whack that would lead to bigger problems. And having an expert like that going alongside somebody that's making such a big decision is super important. And then 52% are looking for negotiated contract terms. Now, it's a tough market. You have to have a great strategy right now in this tough market, and to have an experienced agent that has worked with not only buyers but sellers, so that they can get in the psychology of what the seller is looking for, is definitely very, very important. So hiring a real estate agent that has experience helping first-time home buyers is super important. Now, number two, what to do is to research and know what you can afford. That is like such a calling card for getting ready to buy anything. If you buy a car, and Doug will be able to speak to that later, is kind of understanding the amount that you need for a down payment and being ready to save up for it. Now, the funny thing is a lot of first-time home buyers don't know this, but you don't actually need, most believe you need over 20% down. And that's really a misconception. Today's median down payment is 7%. So an average first-time home buyer saves up about 7%. Here's the deal. You can actually get away with it. There are loans as low as 3% for first-time home buyers. And there are also down payment assistance for those that qualify, which can make basically you just have to do some of the additional costs and you have to take a class. And there's certain criteria where Washington State has assistance available to first-time homebuyers that are buying their first home. So kind of figuring out exactly what they need and then having a plan to save up for it. That's great. And then finally, number 3 is don't lose sight of what a home means. And I have to say that this conversation is often lost on a lot of people that are out there considering buying and they choose not to. And here's the thing is owning, I don't, I just recently did the code of ethics class for real estate. And one of the things that realtors believed in the late 1800s when they started to come up with a code of ethics is they understood what it was like in the old world, that's right, Europe, to own land. Is only those in the upper classes owned land. And what they saw, what they wanted to see here in America was the ability for anybody to buy a piece of property that they could call their own. And that is a unique American realtor experience, is that being that advocate to help anybody own their piece of what we call the American dream. So it's pretty amazing to think that 100 years later, there's some people that see, well, look, I don't want to take 7% and buy a home with 7%. I'd rather just keep renting. The reality is when you're doing that, you're actually paying somebody else's mortgage. They own the land, and that's a private entity, an individual that's gaining on that equity. And don't consider that down payment as paying for a home. That down payment is moving a liquid asset, cash, into a less liquid asset, right? Because you end up just moving it into something that's locked in, but it isn't going away. Sure, appreciation can come and go. Depreciation has existed in the past, but you still have a tangible physical asset, that doesn't go to zero because you always have a piece of land, right? Or a house on that piece of land, or a condo, all of that real estate, your piece of the American dream. So if you are a first-time home buyer being prepared to work to find your first home, reach out to the Eastside real estate team. And as I showed you here, we've got tons of great resources, so you can feel free to go through those resources and read about, get educated, and get ready. And that there is our Real Talk segment for today. I hope you guys found it super useful. And we are going to jump into our mortgage moment. But first, we're going to have a short commercial break.
Do your walls have the doldrums? Why not fix that with some beautiful original artwork? Give your friends and family something to talk about, ponder, and enjoy. Lavish some beauty on them and yourself. You deserve it. Pamela Beer has helped countless clients find the inspirational piece to evoke just the right memory or feeling to their space. Art consultant Kathy says,
Pam's artwork is uplifting, colorful, and highly imaginative, always providing enjoyment and hope to patients and staff in our many hospitals and clinics. Her sense of joy and her commitment to her sense of color and design just add extra enjoyment to everything she does. Thank you, Pam, for all the healing that your artwork gives to the world.
To learn more, follow or message Pamela on Instagram at Pamela_K_beer or Facebook at Pamela K. Beer Art.
Well, welcome back to the show, the Seattle Eastside Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Edwards, a managing broker of the Eastside Real Estate team. And our next guest is Sean Stewart. Sean Stewart is a loan officer and a loan professional for over 20 years. He loves being part of helping everyone enjoy that American dream of homeownership that we talked about. He works for Directors Mortgage and has been on and has an awesome team. Their number one priority is to take great care of their borrowers and business partners. Their company, Directors Mortgage, has a 98% customer satisfaction rating at A rating. Now, just to put words out there, if they have 100%, they're lying. So 98%, that's really great. A+ rating with a Better Business Bureau, and very, very competitive rates and pricing. Please welcome to the show, Sean Stewart. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming
Nice
on to our podcast. We really appreciate it. Now, here's the curveball. I'm going to throw one right out of the start. I'd love for you to share a holiday memory from the home you grew up in.
That's a good one. Gosh, I was about 5 years old, and super excited about Christmas. My mom had kind of put the fear in us that, look, you've got to be really good in order for Santa to come and see you and give you lots of presents. So for 6 months prior to that date, every day I was just, on my very best behavior. And Christmas came. It was one of the best Christmas. Family came over from out of state and just loved it. And I was
And
pretty
all
proud of my
because you were good.
I was pretty proud of myself for being really good for that time frame.
Was it like an
especially been a
epic haul that year or what?
especially been a 5-year-old little boy. I anything my mom needed me to do, I was all over it.
On it. I wonder how long that worked for you. Like how many years that worked for her, right?
Oh, right, right. Shortly after Christmas, I was back to my devious behavior, but
That's awesome. Well, Sean, our topic today is how big of an impact is kind of denied credit. Those get are kind of frustrated with a credit situation. So, how big of an impact do credit scores have on purchasing a home?
credit has a huge impact on purchasing a home. In fact, with this pandemic that we've been going through, more and more people have lower credit scores. And it's interesting to know that it's very important to know that you should actually check your credit before you go and buy a home. There's a there's a credit reporting company for consumers called myfico.com. And I highly recommend before applying for a home to go and check your credit because even even 10 points could lead up to hundreds of dollars in higher interest rates and higher payments.
Okay. So, if you have low credit scores, what is the fastest way to improve them?
So there's a couple key factors in how you can improve your credit scores the most. Maybe you have a spouse or partner who has good credit, good trade lines, meaning good accounts on their credit report, and you can piggyback off of their good credit cards in order to boost your credits quickly. So basically how it works is as if you had those accounts yourself for a long period of time. The other is um, on your credit cards, if your balances are higher compared to the limit, paying those balances down to 1%, you could see a 50, 75, or 100 point increase in your credit scores by doing that. And that's why my FICO is so important because if you pull your credit ahead of time and you know where those balances are, you could pay those down and you could pay them down before your lender pulls your credit and be in really good shape.
I've heard that you want to have a balance that is no more than 30% of the total card outstanding for the sweet spot. Like you're saying, you can pay it down just 1%, and you're going to have something. But if you have a line of credit that's $1,000, to keep it under 300 is kind of the sweet spot for keeping a good credit score. Correct?
And that is correct. In the mortgage industry, we want to see that you can handle your finances well. So having 30% utilization is a good place to be because that means that you're more inclined to you're making your payments on time. You're keeping your balances low. However, credit experts state that having a balance at 1% gives you 20, 30, 50 more points on your credit score than being at 30%.
Oh, okay. So you mean 1% outstanding, no more than 1%.
1% is where you're going to see. So
The
so
best.
30%, yes, 30% of our credit score is credit utilization. It's our
Mhm.
balance compared to our limit on credit cards. And to get the majority of that 30%, you need to be at about 1%.
Okay. So let's pivot a little bit from loss of job. A lot of people either lost their job or had their hours cut back due to COVID, and requested or received what they called was a forbearance from the mortgage company. What does that do to your credit score?
Well, if when you went into the forbearance, you were current on your mortgage, and let's say you weren't able to make payments for 3 to 6 months, as long as you were current going into the forbearance, your credit scores, your credit will not be hindered. There will not be late pays that will show up on your credit report. So it doesn't as it should. It doesn't have a negative impact on your credit score. You're still in good shape.
Okay. So of course you get current though after coming out of forbearance, correct?
It's important that once you come out of forbearance, that you start making payments on time. In order to qualify for conventional financing, you need to have at least 3 payments that you made on time in order to get the financing. If you're doing FHA financing, you need to have 12 months of on-time payment history in order to do
After you come out of the forbearance, correct?
after you come out of the
So after you
forbearance.
come out of forbearance, for conventional financing, you have to be 90 days or 3 months, 3 payments before you can refinance or do any new moves. But if it's an FHA loan, it's 12 months, right?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Self-employment. Have there been any changes in loan qualifications for these times in the current environment now?
Yes, there has. And in being self-employed, I think the world of people who are employing people for jobs. I just think that that's just an awesome place to be. However, due to COVID, lenders have started to restrict the amount of income that they will allow or accept for your self-employment. So back in the day, you could, you as a self-employed individual, you are benefited from, in hiring people or, you're benefited in being able to write off deductions. But now, a lot of those deductions that you would write off, lenders view that as just, not showing enough income, and therefore you may not qualify for financing. So that's something to talk to your accountant about before you apply for a home loan, because it has changed drastically from where it was before.
Yeah, it's taken me some time. I was a sole proprietor for a little while and then finally incorporated to where now I pay myself a salary and I pay myself a salary and that's consistent so that I can be in a position to qualify for loans rather than not, because that was obviously something that on a real estate, you're commission based only, but you kind of got to get yourself in a situation where you can show that durable income. And self-employment, you're right. A lot of people use a lot of deductions to limit their taxability, but then it also limits their affordability too.
That's correct.
Well, awesome. Sean, tell us a little bit about your mortgage company, your rates, how you guys serve your clients.
So I just love working for directors. I'm part of a team. We have an excellent team. There's a couple really good, newer products that we have that we're really excited about. We have what's called an earnest money back guarantee. And that program is really to give sellers the ease of mind that if someone doesn't close their loan, that our company will give back to the seller their earnest money up to $5,000. We also have a program for borrowers that that make their payments on time, that we will give them cash back up to 10% of their monthly mortgage payment. And so if they turn around and they apply that 10% back onto their mortgage, they could pay their mortgage off, 5 to 7 years sooner.
Wow.
And this is no additional money out of their pocket. This is just by making their mortgage payments on time. Not to mention, we have a slew of other products that are available. We have, bridge loans, we have construction loans, we have hard money loans, we have conventional, FHA, USDA, VA, and very competitive rates.
Awesome. So that's Sean, I appreciate the conversation. I think there's some great timely topics. How do our listeners get a hold of you, Sean?
So they could reach me at sean.stewart@directorsmortgage.net, or they could call me at 253-230-2464.
Oops, we got a formatting thing on that, but 253-230-2464, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Sean. I appreciate it. Up next, after this short commercial break, we're going to welcome back to our show, Mr. Doug Peterson of Get Priorities Straight. Come on back right after this short break.
Tired of the same old conversations at networking events that never lead to new clients? BNI is changing the way the world does business by connecting you to strategic relationships that can help you grow your business. BNI is the world's largest networking organization, helping hundreds of thousands of members around the world each year increase revenue through relationship marketing. For information about visiting a BNI chapter near you, go to the BNI Northwest website at bninw.com.
Welcome back to Seattle's Eastside Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Edwards, with the Eastside Real Estate team. And joining us now is Mr. Doug Peterson of Get Priorities Straight. Now, he's got a very long introduction, but I'm going to be short and sweet. He's an amazing man that spent many years helping a lot of people, and now he has found his niche, and he founded it in 2018. It's called Get Priorities Straight, and it's a program to provide individuals and investors an ability to maximize their personal income and improve their ability to invest. Welcome back to the show, Doug.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I love the holiday sweater. It's indeed really ugly. I didn't mean to tell you to wear your ugly holiday sweater.
Come on,
Look
it gets
at that.
uglier. What do you think?
Gosh.
Come on, baby.
Jeez.
I won the ugly sweater contest 2 years ago.
I feel bad. I didn't even dress up for you. I should have. I feel so bad. Listen, Doug, I'm going to ask you about your holiday memory, your youngest possible holiday memory. Was that the lump of coal or what?
No. It was sneaking out with my sister and opening all the presents under the tree before Christmas.
No way.
Yeah, but we taped them back up, but we were pretty bad at it.
Yeah, sure you did. I'm sure nobody suspected that you did that.
But it was such a great idea at the time. It seemed
Did you ruin Christmas that year?
No, got in trouble that year. But
yeah, you got in trouble.
I ruined my own Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, we did that too. We snooped one year and found a telescope and all that stuff. That sucked. I would encourage any young children listening to this podcast, not that that's our target market, but don't do it. Don't ruin your Christmas. Just wait.
I got a meme that said to take empty boxes and wrap them up, and every time your child misbehaves, throw one in the fire.
Just throw it in the fire.
Yeah, but then somebody else said, well, what do you do when you run out of children?
Oh,
okay, that was bada boom. Another Christmas dad joke.
Very good. All right. Well, we're going to talk about saving money and getting organized once and for all. So I think everyone would like to keep more of what they make. What do you suggest for people who really, really want to save money?
Hey, before I do that, I want to make a comment from our previous guest on utilization. The comment on the sweet spot is if you have over 33%, like one card's 80% and the rest are 1%, you want them all at least below 33%. But he's absolutely right. The lower, the better.
Yeah.
But
that's a good point. And just to point that out, you've been doing that kind of assistance for people for a long time, right? Making that advice to get their credit scores in better position. Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of the guy to really help them get positioned before they want to get a mortgage or before, to get them really in good shape on paper if they're trying to get a business loan or whatever, because most people don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as get more money, it's kind of a fallacy to have more money in savings because it's just a bucket. And there's a lot of stuff we need to do with our money. We got to make our monthly obligations, our infrequent obligations. We want a cash emergency fund. We need to reduce our debt. So you really need to think about how do I, and then we want stuff like a house or college tuition or something. So in order to save money, the thing is to really track it and understand it.
Track it and understand it. So, okay, but you can't predict everything that's going to spend money on. So how do you really look forward in that regard?
So for a business to run efficiently and have profits, they know their income and expenses. And personally, if you want to have money to pay for things, you have to know your income and expenses. And there's so many automatic payments, subscriptions, charges from Amazon, Zelle, Venmo. When you get those statements, they don't even show what we bought. So people are in the dark more than ever before. So I teach people to spend 10 to 20 seconds when they buy something, to log it in an app called YNAB on their phone. And what happens is you find several things you need to do. And that's where organization comes in, because there's going to be things that you go, shoot, now I know where the money's going. I don't want it to go some of those places, some of those subscriptions, some of those. We spent how much in takeout? I've had people sending $800 a month on their dog. You know how much that costs over 10 years? You could have bought a really nice Tesla or two.
Or two. So when we say we're getting organized, I think we're looking at getting things done, not miss stuff and spend less time finding things. Don't you agree?
Yeah, really, there's a concept by David Allen who wrote the book Getting Things Done. And our brains are like RAM in a computer. And when it has too much, you're trying to remember, it just slows down. And we're not good at storing data. We're good at thinking and being creative. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference between past, present, and future. And to illustrate this, think of a room in your house where you have an unfinished project. Before you walk in the room, you're feeling great. But when you see that project, you say to yourself, oh, I need to really get that done. In fact, you may even feel it in your body, this feeling of, I got to do that. And if you can write it down in a place where you know you can retrieve it when you need it, you can let it go out of that RAM. So it's really important to create a system so that you can remember. There's just too much stuff. I don't know. Do you remember everything?
No, absolutely not. No,
Reminders,
I mean, it's pretty much like I've got to have something that takes that thought process off my plate, right? I don't need to be thinking about how to be organized. I just need to be doing. And so how do you get started?
Well, there's the way I look at it, there's really three components, and you really need a place to log your tasks. And it can't just be 9 places, post-it notes, tasks in Outlook or whatever you use. So have some kind of task management system. If you have a good one, that's fine. I suggest Asana, which is free and it works great. And then the next thing is to clean up your workspace. Stephen Covey said, before you save the world, clean your garage first. If your physical space is organized, it's not organized, it's harder to keep organized. And I found the best way is get everything off your desktop and only put back what you need.
I mean, look how clean that desk is behind you. That's just immaculate.
There you go.
Oh, so's mine, and mine's not even a virtual. So there, I'll show you guys. Have you guys heard of this product, Remarkable?
I've heard of it. I haven't used it.
I don't know if we've got other people watching, but Remarkable is it's actually, I don't know if you can see it. Basically take a pencil out, not a real pencil, and just writes right on it. And it's a virtual notebook, and it has eliminated multiple notebooks that I have. And there's something about tactile actions that helps solidify in your brain. I mean, I've had multiple task lists on my computer and stuff like that, but to have the moment to sit down and just kind of jot out the tasks, that's usually how I did that to keep myself organized on a regular basis. I took out my notepad and I wrote it down, and then I'd leave the office and go home and I didn't have the notepad. Right. So this is not, I'm not getting paid or compensated by Remarkable, but I've showed this to everybody, and it can help reduce the clutter, right? Which is kind of what we're looking for, help reducing the clutter. So it's called Remarkable. Look that up. It could be a pretty awesome gift to yourself. So obviously, have you read Atomic Habits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the habit stacking, right? You know, that concept of you've got a routine in the morning and you want to add something to it. So, I mean, have you ever, I'm kind of leading the witness, but how can you use habit stacking in order to get started here in this?
So you're basically talking about wanting to add a habit to an existing routine. There's another guy named Charles Hobbs that talks about tiny little habits. And the way you do that is, let's say you just want to floss your teeth, but you never do it, but you brush your teeth. You plan to floss one tooth. So you set the stall very small. The problem is people have trouble getting started and remembering.
Yeah.
So you have a routine and you've got to plug it in there and have some kind of cue that it's time to do that.
All right. So now adding these cues, you claim that it saves time. How does it save time?
Well, so it feels like a lot of work, putting things in a task manager and tracking them, whether it's using Remarkable or something else. But the fact is, when you have a good system, you tend to batch things and you can get them done much quicker. And so one of the things I recommend to people is to have a weekly administration meeting. Nobody woke up in the morning or got married to do more household administration. So that's both looking at your finances, paying bills. It may be planning for a vacation. It may be booking hotels or, ordering materials to fix your deck or finding a contractor. But the more that you can batch all these little tasks that are more administrative into one time, and my wife and I have a routine of an hour a week every Saturday. We never spend any more than that. And we even look at each other's calendars for the next 2 weeks to see where we have conflicts. And it just helps you be proactive versus reactive and know what's going on, and ends up saving a bunch of time.
All right. Well, what keeps you from what keeps people from following through with this?
Complexity is the enemy of execution. Have you ever heard that one?
No, I have not, but I like it.
Yeah. Well, the more complex things are, the harder to learn a new habit. And so one of the challenges is that it takes change, even great change that you're excited about, takes some effort and change. You're in the conscious, not the subconscious. You don't have unconscious competence.
Right.
So you have to actually decide to build this into your working routine. It's far easier to stay organized and on top of your money if you do it every week than at the end of the month.
So in addition to kind of adding these habits and starting to, find out where your money's going, what are the other benefits?
Well, with a system, again, I mentioned you're more efficient. If you're managing your expenses the way I talk about, all your expenses are tracked. Taxes are easier. You're much more aware. You can get out of debt easier. Deadlines are rarely missed. And probably the biggest benefit is communication in marriages is improved.
Awesome. Communication and marriage. That's hand in hand. Now, what is one word that you would say to keep in mind if you wanted to get on top of your finances and be more organized?
Consistency. I've got another great quote for you.
All right.
And I'm sure you were told this as a child. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly. You ever heard that?
No, not poorly. Always well done.
Yeah. So imagine you're learning French and you never spoke French.
Uh-huh.
How are you going to be at the beginning?
Probably not great.
Yeah, but it's worth doing. So don't be discouraged. Just start to get organized, start to track stuff. There's a lot of great information out there, and set a time to sit down at your desk. How many times do we skip it weekend, 2-3 weeks? And now we have a pile at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And who wants to look at that pile?
Not me.
Okay.
So any final thoughts?
Well, money skills are today's for survival skills. You really need to know where you stand. Inflation's eating up our money. Subscriptions are robbing our accounts. You have to be aware of things to know that you're not having your identity stolen. And if you're not keeping track of things and have a spending plan where you're proactively deciding what you're doing, it's just record keeping. So in order to stay consistent, you need to be really efficient with your time, and your systems will do that if you'll invest the time and consistency in building a system.
All right. Very good. Doug, always a pleasure. Great conversation with you. And how can our listeners get in touch with you?
The easiest way is go to schedulewithdoug.com. And then you can see my calendar. You can see a phone number. It's easier than remembering an email address.
Can you just Google that, schedulewithdoug.com?
No, just type it. That's the URL. Just type it in the search and it'll go right to my scheduling app.
Schedulewithdoug.com. Awesome.
All
Doug,
right.
thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. And you can also buy these great sweaters. No, you can't. But I should
like,
sell them.
oh,
They're really
promotional
good.
products. little ugly sweaters branded by Doug. Very nice.
TPS cups, merchandise.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
All right. Merry Christmas. Up next, we're going to have Alicia Howard from College Insights after this short commercial break.
It's about time. Do you find you never have enough time for what matters most to you? Our comprehensive It's About Time virtual productivity program teaches you the secrets of long-term, sustainable, and life-changing productivity. We provide monthly webinars, implementation challenges, resources, community, and accountability. You'll learn tips, techniques, and strategies to help you more effectively and efficiently manage your email, tasks, time, workspace, priorities, projects, and resources. You'll you'll implement organized systems and productive habits that work. You'll finally get better results at work, experience less stress, have more time to dote on your clients, time to spend with your family and friends, take better care of yourself, pursue hobbies, and get more out of life. Do you crave more time for what matters most? Are you ready to take control? Isn't it about time? Well, to start having more time for what matters most to you, call us at 206-579-5743 or visit our website for more information at www.itssimplyplaced.com. Again, that's 206-579-5743 or visit our website www.itssimplyplaced.com. Join today because really, it's about time. Your time.
Yeah, I'm feeling more organized just by being on this podcast today. Between Mr. Doug Peterson and our friend Debbie Rosemont's commercial, it's feeling pretty awesome. Well, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dan Edwards, with Seattle's Eastside Real Estate Team podcast. I'm going to welcome back to the show Alicia Howard. Alicia is the founder and CEO of College Insights. This is a private college consulting company based in the greater Seattle area. She has a master's in education, specializing in education policy, and is a certified college counselor, and is the only certified financial aid advisor in Washington State. She's been in education for almost 19 years and worked in college admissions for almost 10. Alicia has been featured in a number of news outlets and podcasts, and is frequently invited to speak at high schools, community organizations, and businesses throughout the U.S. Alicia, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Okay, I'm going to pitch the same question that all of our guests have got in. Share with us a holiday memory that you have from your childhood.
There's many, but I would say there was this one year, and I was probably like 11, maybe 12, and our Christmas tree died like 2 weeks before Christmas, and it was very sad, and we had to take it out. It was all rotted and stuff, and I was like, well, what are we going to do for our new Christmas tree? And my parents were like, I mean, now I understand as an adult, they're like too busy to deal with it. So, but they're like, we're just not going to have one. And like my 11-year-old mind couldn't fathom not having a Christmas tree when the presents were there.
Yeah.
And so I just decided I was not going to have any of that. And so my older sister, I made her take me to Fred Meyer and get a new tree. And she had this like old boat of a car, right? It used to be our great grandparents' car.
Awesome.
And so we just like shoved this tree in the back of this car. I didn't even know how we got that thing in. And then I somehow figured out how to put it up. I have no idea to this day how I got that tree up when I was 11 by myself.
What did your parents say?
And I decorated it and everything. It was beautiful.
Nice.
And my mom came home and was like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that.
That is awesome. That's an epic story. Way to go. Like you were just kind of a take charge person at that point. That there was no going back from that, right?
I mean, that's just my personality anyway. So I just was like, no, we're not having that. We have to have a tree. So
yeah,
make it happen, right?
Right. That's awesome. All right. So Alicia, let's talk about the steps to the college planning process. Let's share with our listeners. What are the steps?
So there's 4 steps to the college planning process. So step 1 is, I'm a junior in high school or sophomore, wherever you're at in that phase. And I'm looking to go to college, but I'm not really sure, what that looks like or what to do. Maybe I have a couple schools in mind. But you really want to start with what I call that college list process, which is of the 4,000 universities in the US, which ones are you going to ultimately apply to, which is like somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. And so that is kind of a process I'll work with students is, if you kind of know this is what I want to major in, I want to be at a school of a certain size, financially we have X much money to spend, right? All these different variables that go into it. You want to think of all of those and then come up with what will initially start as a larger list, right? Like 20, 30 schools is pretty normal to start with, and then you'll start narrowing it from there. So you'll kind of come up with that initial list of schools. Mm-hmm. Once we solidified that list of schools, we're going to go to step 2, which are all the essays, which is the longest part of the process. It takes me usually about 6 months to get through that students because there's just so many essays. It used to be about 30 on average, but after COVID, I really saw schools kind of knock it down a bit. So This year I was seeing like 20 essays, somewhere in there.
20 different types of essays.
Yeah, 20 different essays, because it's your main essays, but you also have all the supplements. And so
Wow.
it takes, I mean, as you imagine, getting a
Yeah.
16-year-old through that many essays,
Yeah.
and they have sports and, you know, all their other things. And so it
Yeah.
takes some time. But we get through all of those essays. And then once essays are solid, we go on to the applications, which changed a lot actually too after COVID. But that's like getting transcripts in, your activity lists, like letters of recommendation. Now there's these weird A through G matching things at some schools. It's silly, but whatever. There's all these weird things. Applications take quite a lot of time. And then, of course, the financial aid process is number 4. So,
Number 4. Okay. So how can starting early in the college process save families money?
yes. So, like, I get a lot of calls every year that, you know, my kid's already in college or got accepted to college, and, you know, we're realizing tuition's high and we need some help figuring out how to do this. And that's fine, but it's limited of what we can do after they're already in college, right?
Yeah.
So if we can get to them before, right, like junior year of high school, sophomore year of high school, we actually can run all the numbers. We can be very strategic in how we're attacking this application process. We have time to start kind of conquering scholarships and taking advantage of, you know, the money that's available. And a lot of the times we can save a ton of money and get it very affordable if we're strategic at the beginning of the process.
So it's by having more options the earlier you start, and to kind of consider budget constraints, location restraints, such stuff like that. And if you're doing it after the fact in phase, say even 1, so way before, you would want to do this before phase 1, right?
Yeah, or around that
As a
time.
part of that phase.
Yeah, like for example, there's some colleges where, like, if we would have started earlier, if the student got, like one college gave, it was like you get a $10,000 scholarship if you hit a 3.75 GPA, and I had a student who had like a 3.72. And so it was like if we would have started a little earlier, I would have told you that, you know, and then we
Right.
could have made, you know, there's all kinds of things we could have done, right, to try to boost
Targets
that
you get a hit
GPA.
for, look for extra credit, you know, look for a way to kind of boost that, what classes you're taking as a junior and senior, right? So that you can help
Yep.
keep your GPA up. So in addition
Other
to
things.
college planning, have you ever helped anybody get like scholarships or grants to pay for tuition and living expenses?
Oh yeah, all the time. That's all part of it. This year is actually so crazy because back in, you know, when Congress passed the CARES Act with COVID, they they expanded the Pell Grant, and so a lot of people who didn't qualify at all now qualify. But 2, they opened extra funding for just people. Think of like people in unique situations, right? You were self-employed and your business got hit. And you had a kid in school, or you got furloughed, right? Laid off. Like if your income was impacted by COVID, there's a bunch of extra money and grants for those people now. So, I mean, this year, I usually have a couple students go for free every year.
Mhm.
And then of course there's tons of scholarships in there. But this year in particular, with the expansion of funding, I'm seeing just crazy scholarships. I have a student right now getting, per quarter, she's getting about $2,500 extra. Like that's
Wow.
an overage, right? Because we got so many scholarships and grants.
Oh my gosh.
At the end of 4 years, she's actually going to have $32,000 in excess funding. That's tax-free funding.
Holy cow. Invest in real estate. No.
No, actually, that's what we're doing. That's like the only thing I make my
Fantastic.
students promise. As I said, we're putting that in like a fund for one day when she's older and ready to buy a house. She'll have a really nice down payment.
Just buy a bunch of Bitcoin. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Right.
I'm not an investment advisor. I'm just joking. Real estate. That's the best way to go. That's awesome. That is really cool. Now, what if your kid's already in college? Do you have any services that you offer for people with kids currently in college?
Yeah, we do. So when we're pulling funding to make school affordable, we're not just pulling it from one area, right? We're pulling funding from a lot of different areas, you know, to get 5,000 here and 7,000 here, right? We're kind of adding up. So if they're already in school, we can still work on getting additional financial aid, which has now greatly expanded with COVID funding. And there's so many people who qualify. And even, I don't want people to think it's like, oh, only people with no money. I mean, it's people with usually had really good businesses. And again, they're like impact, financially from COVID got hit. Like, so there's people who like they make good money, right, on paper, but there's loopholes. So there's money for financial aid. There's also scholarships out there. So we actually have like a whole scholarship research team. That's all they do all day is look for scholarships for kids. So you can always get scholarship funding as well when they're already in college. So,
well, I feel like this next question is one for Doug, but it's directed to you. Is when should you start saving for college?
When you're pregnant. I mean, I know it's hard to do, right? Because you're, they get to college and you swear they were just born. But, right. My nephew just turned 21. Actually, we went to Nashville a couple weeks ago for his 21st birthday. And I'm like, how did this happen? I just babysat you, and all of a sudden you're a grown man in Nashville. But it happens fast, right? So I think a lot of parents I work with, it's like you had a baby, you have a toddler, you're doing all the parent things of young kids, and you're paying for daycare, and you're probably not making as much at that time in your life. And then it's like, boom, they're teenagers and off to college. And so like I always say, like just save as early as you possibly can, even if it's like $100 a month.
I was going to say how much? Yeah. $100 a month. Yeah.
I mean, anything you can save, because I tell parents, I'm like, if I can at least have at least a year of funding, which in today's dollars is like 25, 30,000, preferably more, preferably 2 years of funded college. We can make that stretch for 4 years. Right.
Yeah,
but if you come to me with nothing, it's a little harder.
Is harder. And for the parents out there, I have to say Washington State has this Running Start program. Both of my kids did. And as a result, the amount of years they're spending at university is like almost in half, not quite, but that was state sponsored. So I'm not saying it's free, because the state kind of allocates your funds from whatever high school you're from. But in Washington State, if you have the opportunity, if your kids got the temperament to do Running Start, I mean, what a great way to save money on college for sure.
Yeah. And every state has something like that. They may call it something different, but Running Start actually predominantly got pushed after No Child Left Behind got passed. And when people thought of No Child Left Behind back in the day, it was more that you thought of like, students who were behind, maybe had learning disabilities, right, whatever. But it's actually not. It's for every student. So gifted kids, as they called it back then, they didn't want gifted kids to not reach their potential, because we were always catering to, students who were struggling more. So every school had to create some sort of program, whether that was, more AP classes at the time. Washington State came up with Running Start, but they had to have funding and programs in place for like your gifted kids, so they didn't fall behind.
So, Alicia, that brings me to a question. Can you help families of kids outside of Washington State, or are you only licensed to help people in Washington State?
Oh, no, I work with students all over the world. I work with a lot of military families, stationed all over the world. I started actually in admissions when I lived in Korea. So my client base for a long time was all over China and Japan and Korea, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. And then I moved back to Seattle, where I'm from. But
awesome. All right. So if you have children that have graduated and have a student or parent loans, what can you do?
Loans. So loans are great. So we want to make sure that for loans, you're doing what you can to obviously pay as little as possible, right? Like we can save you money, right? Nobody's going to say no to free money. So for loans, what a lot of people don't realize is that they talk about like forgiveness programs, like it's one thing, and it's not. We actually work with like well over 75 different forgiveness programs and strategies. And so a lot of people who have existing loans, right, they graduated, now are stuck with the debt. We want to create strategies so that you're repaying as little as you can, right? That could be through forgiveness programs and actually getting it forgiven. Sometimes that's tax-free. Sometimes it's not tax-free. We can run the numbers on that. Or through interest, right? So maybe we can save on some interest. There's all kinds of also new policies now too, where, because, universities were taking advantage of students. And so a lot of loans are getting wiped out because basically like the students were defrauded and lied to. So like, for example, like, do you know, like a couple of years ago, the Art Institute in Seattle shut down, and all the art institutes are being shut down now. But a lot of students took out loans, right, going to school, and that was completely illegal. They weren't supposed to be offering this certain types of funding.
So they were in violation of their license to give the loans. Therefore, the loans were no longer able to call them in. Wow.
Yeah, or when the school shut down, there's different rules with how, like if your school shut down, you couldn't graduate.
Right. You were kind of promised an education with that loan. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and same if you've gotten like any kind of disabilities. I say disabilities, that could be, with people going through like chemo treatments or, all kinds of medical issues, but there's a lot of rules around. That's just a wipeout. Actually, you can just get that completely wiped out. So all kinds of cool ways to deal with it. So it's important to run numbers and have those conversations and see, what you can save in going about those loan repayment plans.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time. And we talked about typically, it sounds like you can work with anybody, but is there a typical type of family that you like working with?
I'd say typical is like junior in high school. Now that we're getting end of December, juniors will begin college planning in about February or so. So juniors in high school with parents that really, find the education piece to be important. They don't want to be behind. They don't want to be stressed about all their kids' essays and all the paperwork they're going to have to do. I really like to work with those students who, they don't even have to be the greatest students. Like the GPA doesn't matter to me. Just a good, hardworking kid who wants to go to a good school, whatever that means for them, with the parent who, is supportive of this process. Right. So
it definitely is. The parent support is always good. And that's fantastic. Alicia, how do parents and students get a hold of you?
They can go to my website, collegeinsights.com. And from there, you can fill out a form, schedule an appointment right on the website for a consultation, as well as my number and email is on there as well.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I want to bring everybody else on and wish you all a very happy holidays. Thank you so much for coming on today, for being a part of the best podcast of 2021. Quite frankly, this was an amazing podcast. Thank you guys for coming on.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
So, as always, we're looking to feature any kind of guest. So if you know of anybody that would like to be featured in 2022 for some amazing podcasts and information about living, working, playing on the East Side, we'd love to have them on, get them in touch with us. And then finally, we just want to talk, spread a little holiday cheer. I think we've got a banner to put up here. Is that right, Lorenz? Let's see. My assistant. Here it is. We've got events coming up. So this event, December 10th through the 23rd, is one of our family's favorite, as my daughter has been a part of this International Ballet Theater's presentation of the Nutcracker at Maidenbower. It's one of the best ones on the East Side. It is not the big Pacific Northwest Ballet, but the sets are amazing. So if you want to have a great holiday fun, check for tickets. I don't know, they're probably maidenbowercenter.com site. So thanks again to all of our wonderful guests. Have a happy holidays, and we'll see you next year.